So today I'm going to talk a little bit more on how we do this. And before I go into a bit of the details, just for people who are not very familiar with Data Teach One, we are the data and digital AI innovation arm of CSIRO. And we have roughly 1,000 talented people, that including all the students we are supervising, all the affiliates we have in university. So at any given time, Data Teach One probably have around 300 PhD students we are working with, and with across 30 universities in Australia. We have about 200 government corporate partners at any time, and we're working with them on many projects. In the recent past, Data Teach One generated quite a number of spin-outs and patents. In terms of the things we work on, we will have working on responsible technology and AI. As Gil mentioned, the trust in these technologies is really very important. That includes privacy, regulation technology, and engineering and design of AI systems. We work a lot on the resilient and the recovery technologies for Australians, natural hazard resilience or cyber resilience. Some of the technologies there, including digital twin, bushfire, Spark toolkit. We also have a lot of facilities, such as the Mixed Reality Lab for Industry 4.0, Robotics Innovation Center, and AI for Cybersecurity HPC enclaves. These facilities are often open to our partners, including SMEs, if there's a need. We are also the home of the new Australian National AI Center, which I will give a little bit more details later. So Data Teach One actually recently just launched a new strategy with our new director, John Whittle, joined us back in July last year. So as you can see, I highlighted the #1 strategic goal for Data Teach One is to drive the development and adoption of AI in Australia, including through the new National AI Center. We'll use our technology to help Australians' recovery and resilience, and also reinventing how science is done, and to drive more scientific discoveries. Just very briefly on the markets and the domain we are focusing on, we're definitely not limited into this, but they are the focus at the moment for us to engage with the wider industry. For example, Industry 4.0, 5.0, digital manufacturing, defense, environment and the natural hazards, digital services, which covers a lot, and the digital agriculture. On the science and technology side, AI and cybersecurity is at the center. That's why we are here for this symposium, and we want to hear from you what you can get from AI and cybersecurity. But in addition to that, we also deal a lot of technologies for data in the real world. AI for science, humans and machines, how they work together and gaining trust from each other. And also we are growing the quantum technology space. As I mentioned in the recent budget announcement, Australian government have put a significant investment in a National AI Center. This is not a typical R&D center. This is really a center that's going to lift Australian businesses' AI capabilities, especially SMEs. So this is to drive business adoption and the use of the transformative AI technologies to improve their productivity and lift their competitiveness internationally. There will be research expertise, but also equipment, tools, training, and ecosystem links to be built. And Data Teach One is to lead and coordinate this National AI Center. In addition to the AI National Center, there was also 2 streams of graduate programs, one on next generation artificial intelligence, and the other one on emerging technologies, such as blockchain, cybersecurity, quantum. Those graduate programs will help create the next generation talents that can help SME and a wider industry to adopt AI and cybersecurity. You can find more details in Australia's AI Action Plan, which was launched last Friday by Minister Potter. And also there was references to the artificial intelligence technology roadmap that Data Teach One released back in 2019. So to the main topic, when we're talking about SME, are SME ready to take AI and cyber technologies? What are the challenges they're facing? So I'm referring to some international studies. There are a lot of studies around this. I picked one in terms of the challenges SME is facing. So around the world, not just in Australia, there has been limited domestic demand for SMEs. So there's a great call for SME to export. And the digital revolution also caused SME to pursue innovations like AI for competitive advantage, because digital innovation is really the key for joining the global, increasingly digitized value chain as a supplier, and also connecting in the integrated business network, which will bring a lot of benefits to the SME. SMEs are also encouraged to target global customers with competitive and personalized offers. On the other hand, there are pressures for SME to have a better cybersecurity posture, to adopt more sustainability practices, and also to take ethical, legal, and social aspects of technology very seriously. So there is a lot of ask for SME in this space. On the other hand, they have limited resources. However, the reason we are encouraging SME to do that is research has shown, which I show, again, reference a paper, is that AI and cybersecurity adoption really significantly improves their export intensity. Small enterprises often struggle to exploit benefits in sustainability investment. But if you invest in AI significantly, the sustainability will emerge as an enabler for other strategic actions. So it points to two speed scenarios for SME. One is those who are now investing significantly in digitization and AI will actually be ready to benefit from future opportunities of global market and sustainability trends. But for those who are not, maybe remain trapped in the lack of competencies and resources. So I think having some AI and cyber investment really is good for the long term. And as Gil mentioned already, I'm just pointing to the great research recently CSIRO Services SME mission have done with RMIT, listing the enablers and barriers for SME to work with industry research. You can go to the link to find the report, so I'm not going to go into the details. So it's a lot of insights in the report you can find. And there are recommendations on how to overcome those barriers. So in this particular talk, I really want to more of presenting a few models in SME engagement and to hear feedback from you, either online or offline later. So Gil mentioned a lot of activities in CSIRO to engage with SME, for example, through the SME Connect. And those models are great. We have a lot of great success stories, as Gil has mentioned. On the other hand, this is one-to-one or one-to-few models. There are a few other ways that we can do that. But in this particular talk, I want to mention a few of other ways because we are working in digital. So there might be ways that we can engage with SME in a one-to-many model. So we can help more SMEs to be more efficient to take up our research. So I've listed 7 models that Data1 have tried. Obviously, they are not all the models, and we are wanting to hear from you other models or feedback on these models. All these models have some shared characteristics. For example, they are for the SMEs to integrate with the global value chain in one way or another. They are there to connect SME to government, defense, and bigger firms. They are there to explore the dual-use technologies, which some great research institutes and university and CSIRO have developed, and also try to create a multi-sided markets for SME to find their partners. So let's jump into a few of them now. So the first model is really to create an open source ecosystem. The example I'm giving here is Data1 have developed a secure and modular IoT system. It's co-developed with a major global aerospace manufacturer. After the development, the global aerospace manufacturer has asked us to open source this particular project. The reason is they feel if any suppliers to their on their supply chain, any suppliers who want to supply to as part of their global product landscape, if they are using this particular open source component on secure and modular IoT system, they are very easy to be integrated into their global supply chain. And also, they will be having more confidence on the security and the quality of this particular component because they were the initial founder of this particular open source project. So here, DataStrand developed the technology with the multinationals, and SMEs are using the components for easier integration into their global supply chain. There's also the benefits of access to local capabilities and talents because the team that have developed this technology can provide some additional advices and sometimes customize the solutions. The second model is around the data commons for SME. Although when we talk about AI, we often talk a lot about algorithm, the model, the machine learning of it. But really, the great assets is typically coming from data itself, where you are learning from. Because the learning algorithm actually are mostly textbook algorithms which have been developed probably decades ago. And they are very effective still. Depending on the type of data you are learning from, you can generate a lot of great models and insights from the data. So the data is really important. So here, obviously there are a lot of data sets out there, but for SMEs, we have been thinking about to create special data sets for SMEs for a particular industry sector. For example, in the cybersecurity space, DataStrand is the Australian coordinator for collecting and sharing industry data for research, which is organized by the US Department of Homeland Security. And we also provide an environment for accessing such data securely in a model to data paradigm, which means rather than sharing data with everyone, we have the choice to move your model and learning into a secure environment and only share the insights back if the data is highly sensitive. So here, DataStrand's role is to facilitate the creation of these data sets, making them very accessible to SMEs and researchers, and SMEs can contribute to these valuable data sets without worrying too much about the commercial confidentiality because everything is quite secure, and also accessing to researchers who can work on these research data sets. Again, it's a one-to-many model, benefits many companies at the same time. The third model is really a reinvention of the living labs and open labs and hub concept. So this is fairly similar to the, for example, the MIT Media Lab and many of the other living labs around the world. But here we are creating a local network. So the access is not just to DataStrand researchers, but also DataStrand network, all the university researchers, and early access to research results, send visiting fellows or employee in residence to DataStrand, free trials of new DataStrand technologies, royalty-free licensing rights for some of the IP for SME, and to influence some of the future technologies and roadmaps. So we have already done such living labs in the past in the areas of supply chain and mixed reality, as I mentioned, but also we are looking into digital trust and other examples. The next one is really to create a technology as a platform so many SMEs can use. So here, the example I'm giving is a microkey technology, which is based on blockchain. It's a self-sovereign identity platform for businesses and critical supply chains. So companies using microkey can be using the platform features to verify business identities. Especially, this is especially useful for critical supply chains like critical metals and other things, and also for supply chain compliance. You can achieve a lot on this type of platforms. So DataStrand here again is building technology platforms with a lot of integration points for SMEs to integrate and then allow others to build applications on top rather than rebuilding them ourselves. SMEs can do this, but also bigger companies can do this in terms of building applications, and also try to leverage the competitive advantage of the platform and the Data61 brand. When you use the platform, your application and your supply chain and your products will be associated with the strengths behind the Data61 strategy technology. There's also a benefit of access to expertise and special features that we can tailor for a particular SME. Similar to this, the model I just showed was more of a platform model. On the other hand, you also can have a early access to Data61's specific technology. For example, we recently launched a technology called Wildcat, which is part of our early adoption program. So this is a way to co-create value by helping SMEs to adopt next generation technologies to fuel their growth. So you can have access to technology, you can have try to co-design with us, and to have access to a network around the technology. So this is really a way for SMEs to look at what are the exciting new technologies are coming out from Data61 and to have some early access to them. The next model I want to touch on is I call it shared infrastructure. So here, a lot of the infrastructure for SME is hard to get access to some of the very useful infrastructure for doing their business, trying new AI and cybersecurity technologies, and including integrating their products. So here, Data61 is trying to create such shared research infrastructure or trusted digital infrastructure to connect SME with the wider business network. The examples I have listed here is, for example, the high-performance computing infrastructure for cyber and AI, some of the virtual hub and a laboratory environment for AI and cybersecurity, and some of the blockchain-based trust infrastructure I mentioned earlier for critical supply chain, for smart money for SME service providers, for some of the smart contracting infrastructure for SMEs. So you can see a particular report called Making Money Smart that was done with Commonwealth Bank of Australia, where we look at the possibility of have a blockchain-based smart money infrastructure for SMEs to participate in the NDIS scenario where they provide service, and also great for consumers to manage their budget. The final model I want to briefly touch on is the reference implementation of standards model. So we know whether it's coming from responsible AI, ethics framework for AI, or cybersecurity standards, it is very difficult for SMEs to have adequate resources to implement those standards and doing conformance and compliance checking. It might be easier for big companies when they have a large number of people looking after standards and compliance. So here, the goal of the Data61 is to provide reference architectures, reference implementations, and exemplars for complex standards for SME, and to provide some technologies to enable automated conformance and compliance to these standards, and also operationalizing some of the high-level ethical principles in AI for SMEs, so they can do it easier and also integrate it into the global supply chain. So here, again, SME can build applications on top of some of the standards we implemented in terms of reference architecture and reference and access to the experts behind them. So a few examples we have been doing, including automating the compliance for trusted agri-food exports. So there are a lot of food export regulation which SMEs have to tackle. We also Data61 was the standard setter for consumer data rights. So here we are basically making those standards very easy for fintech and other SMEs companies to use. We have some work on cybersecurity standards and compliance, and also we are working on the operationalizing ethical and responsible AI following the release of the Australian ethics, AI ethics framework done by the DataSequence. So those are just some initial thoughts on the models based on our current experience. As I said earlier, we very welcome you to give feedback to these models and propose new models to work with us, whether it's a one-to-one model or one-to-many model. So the very last slide, I'll just stay here. If you are interested in working with DataSequence today, there are a number of ways. As Gil mentioned, SME Connect is the very good place to start if you want to have an R&D projects with DataSequence directly, or feel free to talk to DataSequence directly as well. I mentioned a lot of the technologies as an example. In the model, we have many other technologies which are ready for trialing and licensing from SME. Some of the scale-up models, one-to-many models, if you are interested, we're happy to engage through those models. And for some of the SMEs, you may want to have a deeper partnership with us by having a shared technology roadmaps. So we are aware of what you are working on, you are aware of what we are working on, so we can meet in the future when the opportunity arises. Finally, again, happy to hear any feedback on the models. So you can contact me and also William James, which is our new business development manager.